Thank you, Vice Mayor, Commissioner Rita Lowe. You've been such an important part of this community and this project particularly. Can't thank you enough for your friendship and ongoing work that you're doing on behalf of the city. Next, I'd like to bring up the artist that's responsible for the creation of this mural, Tracy Peterson. And on the artistic front, we have with us today the artist who painted the oil painting that was the cover of my book that had the first impression of what Fanny and Samuel looked like. So I want to acknowledge Janet Villasneal over here. Thank you so much. She has a couple of reproductions for sale with her today too, so afterward, again, you can check those out. Tracy?
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's so wonderful to see such a big crowd to celebrate Lake Worth's history and diversity. I want to really thank all the people that are involved, have been involved. I've had so many volunteers, and as Ted's already said, and Steve, this was years and years and years in the making. So I had a lot of people to listen to and a lot of history to learn about so I could produce the right history in the mural. There was a lot of collaboration that happened. It went on. The process was, we're almost on to the 4 years from the time the mural started. It took a community of collaborative individuals and artists to bring this together. So I really appreciate so many people coming out to share in the dedication. I'd like to give just a little history for my connection to this area and what attracted me to the project. As many of you know, I live right across the street, and I've lived there since the early 90s. I was born, raised, and educated in South Florida. I've been an outdoor Florida girl and love the area and love opening coconuts ever since I was a kid, and going in the intercoastal when it was a lot greener and bluer than I remember it used to be. We moved here in the early 90s, and I opened an art gallery downtown, and that went on for about 10 years. And then my connection to the neighborhood grew as I lived here, and I got to know the history of Lake Worth. And I kind of lived by a simple idea of grow where you're planted. And as an artist, we're always growing and learning, and everything we learn about, we want to then start to create. I mean, that's part of the creative process. So the seed of the idea of community and living there and living where Fanny was, and knowing that this started as such a diverse community, and started with this black couple in the late 1800s. She could read and write. She wasn't even allowed to sign the paperwork because women weren't allowed to sign. He had to sign an X in the late 1800s. I mean, he could farm, he could build. The two of them did amazing things, and the story is just so amazing in this book. And I was able to, with some funding, start a project that this mural for me builds on. So all of those tables are started over 20 years ago. They've been in this park. And that project was called Many Cultures, One Community. And through funding and grants, I was able to work with students in the area, and they were picked a culture, their culture generally, not always, and they would pick a culture to depict in a mural, and they had to learn how to make a mural about their culture and their community that also brought in the whole community that they live in. So all of that, Many Cultures, One Community, that's been there 20 years. People have not vandalized it. They're beautiful. I mean, they're a little beat up because it's been 20 years of like eating on it and stuff, but it's amazing. So that was one of the reasons I think Ted and Steve were, interested in having me create this mural. And I do have such a strong connection to this area. And I'm in the park 3 times a day because I have a dog. So I always feel every day a connection to my roots here. So kind of back to the process. There's a couple quotes in this book that really were inspirational for me. And I just wanted to read those quickly. Ted kind of alluded to them. Part 1, page 1. This is a quote by Dr. James Hinshaw, 1878. Toward the south lies a panorama of pines, cypresses, and sawgrass, with their varying tints of green, amidst which is a network of small streams glinting in the sunlight like a filigree of silver, while far beyond lies Lake Worth, a burnished shield on a velvet sword. So very visual. So as an artist, I'm like, exactly, ooh, okay. Then I turn the page, and of course, there's another quote. He's got awesome quotes. This is by Jacob Rhett Mott. In 1830, he was a surgeon with General Jessup's army. So I'm always like, hey, another quote. So here's his quote. It is in fact a most hideous region to live in. A perfect paradise for Indians, alligators, serpents, frogs, and every other kind of loathsome reptile. The whole peninsula is alluvial, having been formed by successful encroachments of the Atlantic. And it goes on. So then I was like, find the center there. And as you heard from Scott, there's just some really history that is so sad and is so horrible. And I tend to stay in Happy Land, so I picked a day in the life of Happy Land for Fanny and Samuel and the Barefoot Man. No one's mentioned him. He was, of course, a big part of the history here. And so yeah, I just was able to. I mean, I just barely started, Ted, got past 40 pages, and there's so much visual information between the quotes and the pictures. And so that gave me a lot of information to build on. The process also included, along the way, as I said, collaborating with Ted and Steve. Since they're the historians, they helped me write the quotes and the captions. This is 3 panels. You can see them, they're numbered at the top, 1 of 3, 2 of 3. So if you kind of walk around that is a visual representation of the actual process. If you're interested in clay and pottery and glazes, it kind of helps lead you through what happened. And I mean, really, it was all Fanny James was just my inspiration. I still, to this day, can't believe a black woman in the late 1800s could read and write and do all of this in this area, and we get to step on her soil every day. I did a lot of research, had a lot of brainstorming, a lot of trial and error, a lot of test glazes and tiles. I have some of the test tiles that I created along the way up front. And for a donation on if you like test tiles, see Judy. The donation for the tiles will go to the Historical Society. And that's only part of the tiles that we test tile. There's always a lot of tests. Let's see, I've kind of covered everything. I also want to mention, this was another book. 2 artists at the time that inspired me that lived at the same time. So George Potter this is the cover of his book. He was an artist that lived at the time, and this book of his had really great drawings, line drawings, and he talked about this area, Lake Worth. So I actually used some of his drawings as a start of some of the images in the mural that you can find. And I've hidden a lot of the people's names that either volunteered to help me paint, or the artist names are all kind of hidden in there for anybody that worked with me or helped me or supported me. And some people don't even know they're in there because they didn't even know I used their information. This book was really interesting. A local woman wrote a book on Laura Woodard, and I happened to go to the Ann Norton, had a show on her, and she actually was the artist that painted for the main guy. Who is our main developer?
Ryan.
Sorry.
Ryan.
What?
Ryan.
No, wait, before that. Sorry, I'm forgetting names.
Flagler.
Yes, I'm sorry, Flagler. Hello. Hey, I'm not the historian, I'm the So she actually became his favorite artist, and he used her paintings to sell and promote so he could bring more people down. And this book, and you're welcome to thumb through it if anybody's interested in it. I put where she said you could buy it. But what's great about it is she had photographs from that time period, and then next to the photograph would be her painting. So it really helped me as an artist to kind of decide on the style and the imagery and what would work. So, and as you can see, there's just so much information in this mural. We really made it as a site-specific mural. We wanted it here in the space, and there's kind of layers to the mural because of maybe the heights of the human looking. So some of the stuff lower is more colorful and big and kind of like for little kids to look at, and then the depth kind of goes back. But everything in this mural was, you know, like I said, within the first 40 pages, I had so much visual information, I couldn't even go any farther in the book. So that's as far as I got. So thank you everybody so much for coming. Yes.
The tiles and what you were going to put on there. Did Fanny's spirit speak to you, like what she wanted on there?
Yes, I was thinking of all the people, and I put her front and center, and I used Janet's characters. So you notice that the main two characters from the cover of the book are the same two characters. I did change the barefoot one a little bit, but basically, I wanted it all to connect so that people would be interested in getting the education. So I love history and I love art, and I love that I could just ask him. Oh, and the best part is his little cheat sheet in the back. There's a timeline here. So if you're like me and you can't remember history, you can go, oh. Like you weren't giving a time, Scott. What's that time frame when all the bad stuff started happening? What years? Oh, okay, so it was even, because she died, wasn't it 1914 she died? 15. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I channeled Fanny, but I hope I did her justice, that's for sure.
Tracy enough for her love and the work and the research and the hours and hours and hours she put into making this mural. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. To make this mural a reality, I walk with a friend several days a week here and very often meet Tracy in the park where she's walking her dog. So many decisions about the mural and the design and where it was going to be located, and the planning program today. All this was made out here under the trees in the morning as we were walking. So we really are community. And just to underscore the diversity of the community at the time of the founding of Jewell, when I was on that research committee in 2012, we didn't know anybody else that was using that little post office. We knew Fanny and Samuel, and we didn't know any of the neighbors. And so the National Archive had been digitized in the meantime in between Scott's articles and when I began my research. And we were able to find in the National Archive the other homestead applications and other people that own property up and down the coast here. And we found a wide variety of people. For example, this property behind me, that's now the Birthday Cake Castle, was owned by an African-American woman by the name of Amanda Moore, who came from Georgia. and as far as we know, had the first residential lot in what was to become Lake Worth. All these others were farms. But she got a 50-foot wide, 300-foot deep lot, and she built her house here. And then she had some farmland a little bit out west. There was also some German people in the area who came directly from Germany. One who lived in College Park, who was such good friends with the Jameses that she actually nursed him on his deathbed. And they inherited his property up in College Park. And she had a big pineapple farm up there. And she, in 1903, was listed as one of the big pineapple growers in the area, in Palm Beach County, because she grew this on William Stephen's land up there, this German immigrant friend of theirs. Then there was a Swedish couple, Gudmundsons, that lived down here. And there was a defrocked Catholic priest by the name of Michael Merkel who lived out in Lake Osborne, who also got his mail here. So it was really a diverse community, in addition to the Bahamians and the Seminoles that would show up from time to time. The mural depicts a hidden Seminole village there because after the Seminole War, they had to go into hiding. They didn't tell anybody where they were staying, but they did come from time to time to sell venison and to trade. And we have that in the papers and the records of the time. So there really was a diverse community here in reality that we're celebrating here today. Now I'd like to bring up another cause for celebration. Kalimba, where are you? Kalimba has been a colleague in so many ways. She's the founder of Open Heart Ministry, a songwriter, an artist, and a talented person in so many ways, and mostly her heart. So Kalimba's going to share a little bit of her heart with us in song. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ted, and for everyone who organized this event. Tracy, for bringing beautiful history to this park. And I feel so personally connected to everything that's going on today, words that have been said. I also lived right around the corner, right at 4th there, and I met Tracy because we were both dog people. We all knew each other by our dogs' names before we knew our people names, and it was wonderful. And I literally came to tears one day, Tracy, when I looked at the African American table, because it had beautiful pictures on top. Please go and see it if you haven't. But around the edge, it had an excerpt from Martin Luther King's mountaintop speech, where he saw this day in his heart, where he said that the children of former slaves and the children of former slaveholders would sit together at the table of brotherhood. And here we are today as brothers and sisters celebrating a diverse history that started the whole thing. So I want to give Tracy another hand for bringing culture. And when Ted asked me to sing a song today, he threw out a suggestion, as he often does, and sometimes I'll catch it and run with it, and sometimes it'll give me a different idea. Well, the song he asked for was a song I sang in a talent contest when I was in the 4th grade, okay? And the song is, "This land is your land, and this land is my land." And before I ask you to join me in singing that, I also want to say that I was born in the year of Brown versus Topeka Board of Education, okay? I was born the year that segregating schools became theoretically illegal. I want that to land with you for a minute, okay? I was around 5th grade, I think it was, when my parents, my aerospace engineer, graduate from MIT, got the right to vote. Let that land for a moment, okay? So I want you all to really get, and I'm getting chills at the thought of how far we've come, yet how daggone far we still have to go, okay? So I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you an assignment. Rather than sing the lyrics that Woodrow Guthrie, does that sound like a good thing? Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie revised the song in the 70s. And when he did that, he gave us some new things to look at. Because in the original song, we're looking at the sky so beautiful and the valleys so fabulous and the diamond sands of the desert and all this beautiful nature, this beautiful natural earth that Mother Nature is, and that we were given freely, okay, to enjoy. So when they say it's for you and me, that's for us to not only enjoy, but to be the stewards of. Hello, let that one land. And I know I'm talking to the choir here. I know that I'm speaking to most people who know how to recycle. You're doing the best you can to make the world a better place and to actually take care of Mother Earth. But I implore you to please make sure you pass on this love and this stewardship that we're here to take care of Mother Earth. Please pass that on. And if you see somebody throwing some trash on the ground, if you don't have the courage to speak to them about it, would you please don some plastic gloves or something and pick it up and put it in the trash yourself? Yeah. Hello. And I'm going to say one more thing in honor of my dad and my mom. My dad, the MIT aerospace engineer, taught us when we went camping that when we left the campsite, it was cleaner than when we got there.
Yeah.
None of us smoked. Well, my mama did. Oh well, that's another story. We had to pick up cigarette butts that other people left so that the ground would be beautiful. Can you let that land for a moment?
Yes.
So when we sing this song, this land is your land, and this land is my land, it's ours, so we got to take care of it, right?
Yes.
Can we say yes a little louder? Yes. One more time, yes. All right, now here we go. Here we go. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. I'm going to ask you to stand up and sing it again. Here we go. 5, 10, 8. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. Give yourselves a hand.
I told you were going to get some art. Thank you so much, Linda, for your love and for your dedication to building community, which is what this is all about. So I'd like to acknowledge now another pioneer in a sense who couldn't be with us today, but Larissa Brown was the first African-American principal at Barton Elementary, and she was a contributor to the book Pioneers of Jewell. She wrote the foreword, and she was just so euphoric about the idea of the diversity being at the heart of this community. And so, even though she can't be with us today, we wanted to make mention of her. And now bringing up another collaborator who has worn so many hats in the city, our first African-American fire chief in the city of Lake Worth, member of the committee, policy scholars with Lakewood High School, Lions Club, who also was the funder of this project, as well as the after-school program for the children. So, Chief Paul Blossom.
Almost
let me go on. I'm going to mention 3 trite sayings, okay, that we've come to know, and in some cases kind of disregard, and then some of us really take them to heart. And they are memorable to me because of the fact that they're meaningful for what we're doing today. The first is, it takes a family to, takes a community to raise a child. My family raised me, so anyway, it takes a community to raise a child. And I say that because of the fact that I'm a Kiwanian, as Ted indicated, and because of that, Kiwanians believe in furthering the progress of all the youth, not only just in our community of Lake Worth Beach, but across the state and across the country, and even across the world. And so I realize, and as most of the Kiwanians do, that it takes more than just a parent, more than just aunts and uncles to raise a family. It takes all of us. And that includes the diverse people that we have in our community. The other trite saying is that if you don't remember or you don't investigate your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Now, and I say that because of the fact that we have this mural up here as a good indicator of our history that we can be proud of. But there are some things that happen in our community that I'm not so proud of. You know, I look at what's going on right now about the January 6th march on the Capitol, you know, and yet we can compare that to another march on Washington with what's happening with Martin Luther King. And if you don't know the history behind either of those, you may make the wrong decision. You may do the wrong thing. And so we should encourage our kids to investigate the history. Scott McCabe has done that, you know. Ted Bronstein has done that. And hopefully we can glean something good and vital from those investigations. I know I was never running good on dates, you know, trying to learn all the dates of that happened, you know, oh my God. Kalimba mentioned her birthday. Well, I do remember that was 1954. So I do remember that, okay, Board of Education. My last trite statement is that, oh my goodness, hold on. Oh my goodness. That if you can see it, you can be it. Okay. Now, that mural, again, is a good example of that, because of the fact that people now of all ethnic backgrounds can walk up to that mural and see themselves someplace in that mural and reflect on it and say, you know what, I was there, we can be good, we have done good, and reflect on that. I know, as Ted mentioned, being the first African-American fire chief here in the city of Lake Worth, nobody ever thought of that could be a possibility. I know when I first got into the fire department, I didn't think it was a possibility because I had never seen a black firefighter. So eventually, I became a role model per se, and so children then thereafter, young adults thereafter, were able to